the Giants did go after Russell Wilson. And that is pretty much telling me, at least, we're probably not going quarterback if we got Jameis and Russ, unless they go Shedeur, Jameis, and Russ and dress them all, which I don't really expect to happen. For me, at least, Deshaun, Russ to New York was a desperation move for the front office. They are on a flaming hot seat, Brian Dable and Joe Shen, and they need to get wins now. Russell Wilson, they have guaranteed production out of. He's a veteran, knowledge of the game, understands what he's walking into. They know what they're getting out of Russell Wilson. Why would they bet their future career on Shedeur Sanders, who is probably getting overdrafted because of the weak quarterback draft class? Now they have Russell Wilson, who, again, he might not be the game changer that he once was, but he's won a Super Bowl, and he has the knowledge and veteran presence he'll bring in there. They have a true number one with Malik Neighbors. Tyrone Tracy was serviceable last year as a rookie running back. The defense is actually pretty solid. So going into the draft, they have to be looking at the weapons or the offensive line, I think. Like, I wouldn't necessarily go quarterback for them because, in my eyes, Russ is on a 1-year, $21 million deal with $10.5 million guaranteed. They're looking in the future at a better quarterback draft class where they can actually develop rather than drafting this year, putting their franchise at risk for another 5 miserable seasons. They're gearing up and trying to save their jobs.
Yeah. First, I want to just say, so you didn't pay Saquon because you wanted to pay Daniel Jones, and then you let Daniel Jones go because he was bad. Saquon go and has a historic season, wins a Super Bowl, and then to save face, you then circle back and get Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. I hope, for the sake of Giant fans, that they lose their job, like that entire front office and head coach, because that just makes no sense to me. This seems like a front office that is making moves really with no purpose. But what I will say, for the roster that they have now, I wouldn't be surprised if they have like a relatively successful season. They do have a good defense. You got Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns. Like, you have really good front seven. You have a decent secondary. And yeah, like, you have like a legitimate wide receiver one, a future star if he's not one now. And you also have Wan'Dale Robinson, a very legitimate wide receiver too. And Russell Wilson, even in that 6-game stretch this last year, like, he looked of Russell Wilson of old. So I still do believe that he does have a little bit left in the tank. It's just going to be all dependent on if that New York Lions going to be able to hold him up. But I do think that this is a good move for them to win now, but I still don't think it's a good enough move to make them a legitimate threat in the NFC.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say the Giants are looking at maybe even the playoffs. Like, they might get there, but I don't know. The NFC was tough last year, despite what people have to say. I think this puts them around like the 7 to 8 win game range for me. I think somewhere around there, maybe 6. It really depends how fast Russ can pick things up in that New York system. But that's a good point you brought up. I mean, I was just searching up the contract situation there, and Darius Slayton is making 3 years, $36 million. And Barkley just scored, I think, $13.5 million per year. So it's just kind of interesting the way things played out there. Obviously, that was a massive mistake for New York, especially putting the salt in the wound was the fact he went to Philadelphia and won a Super Bowl with them with an Offensive Player of the Year season. But I agree with you, Deshaun. I think this move for New York made the most logical sense, and it sets them up as a franchise to at least compete and maybe have a brighter future. I didn't love forcing a quarterback draft pick early on and just betting on him even if you didn't like Shedeur Sanders. I think for Brian Dable and Joe Shen, this is saving their ass right now. This is, please keep me around. Let me have a salary for this team, and we'll try and build something up. The quarterback draft classes coming up are seemingly a lot better than this year's, and they should be decent. So if they can kind of get things going with Russ or Jameis Winston, whoever it is, the team actually isn't that bad. They had a big free agency in the secondary, Javon Holland, Paulson Adebo. They're actually set up pretty well. It's just the Giants. That's really the only problem. So I really liked what they did with Russell Wilson. It made a lot of logical sense for me.